Hello chess friends and welcome to Mamedyarov chess channel and welcome back to our Catalan opening studies. So in these studies we're analyzing this amazing opening with the common middle game strategies, ideas, plans that are possible in an early stage of the game, but also we have seen some cool tactical possibilities, also some common traps that are possible for both sides. So in my opinion it's really one of the most important playlists here on my YouTube chess channel. So today we are continuing with a different line. Today we're again analyzing the open defense. The open defense is when black is trading off the c4 pawn immediately, plays d takes c4 in an early stage of the game. But today with a different sideline, today we're having this follow-up with the move a6, which is of course an idea to connect most of the pawns here on the queen side and trying to have a nice grip on light squares and get out of this maybe tactical mess, trying to get also here a 3 maybe versus 2 pawn majority on the queen side. Of course it's an idea, white has some other plans, so in my opinion it's very often a very common line that black is playing here, but there are of course as I said many sidelines that are possible. So this will be now our continuation of our Catalan opening studies today, but also in the next couple of videos we'll analyze this early a6 move by black. So today I prepared an amazing gameplay by Liren against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov back from 2017 that explains I think the most important strategic concepts, but also some cool tactical ideas of this opening line. So Ding opened with the move d4. Shak's response was knight to f6, c4, e6, and now g3 immediately the Catalan opening. We have now the move d5, bishop to g2, and now d takes c4. We have the open defense. If you're interested more into the closed Catalan, or also maybe in some other lines of the open defense, please check out our playlist. Here's the link of our whole playlist of this Catalan opening. Please check it out. I think you could have really good preparation in the sharp opening. So d takes c4 takes out now the pawn, but of course liberates now the long diagonal for the light square bishop. So we have knight to f3, a6, which as I said is an idea to connect all of these pawns here on the queen side. Now king side castling here played by Ding Liren, and now knight to c6 by Shak, which is different idea also to lock the long diagonal. You're just placing the knight basically in front of the bishop. It's of course not immediately attacked by the bishop, but in many of these lines white will probably not give up his light square bishop for the knight. If necessary he will do it, but in some lines he probably not, because his light square bishop is the most powerful piece on the board, and usually you want to create some tactical damage against the rook on a8. But you see now in this line from knight to c6 that there are even possibilities to give up the light square bishop for a knight, creating maybe here even a triple pawn structure. If you could just imagine with bishop to c6, then we have here c7, c6, and also the pawn on c4. So it will be really messed up pawn structure on the queen side, which is I think a good compensation for the lost bishop in an early stage of the game. So this will be now white's plan, creating a messed up pawn structure on the queen side. So you could also try here the move b5. We will analyze also the move b5 immediately, which creates I think new opportunities for white with the move knight to e5. I just wanted to show you a little bit of theory here. After move knight to e5, black has to now lock the diagonal, but now white is challenging the pawn chain here with the move a4. Bishop to b7 is an opportunity, but now comes the tricky part. After move b3 that white is playing, white is of course trying to somehow disconnect all of the pawns here on the queen side. Then there is this tricky line with the move c3. Now white gets aggressive with the move e4, but now black plays the beautiful move b4, and this is a line that we'll also study in the later stage of our Catalan opening preparation. Look at this. Black is giving up the knight here on d5, but is paralyzing white's knight here on b1. The knight on b1 cannot get out on c3, cannot get out also on d2. In one particular moment, if white wants to get out of this mess with the knight white will have to sacrifice the knight for a pawn. Maybe is hoping to get 2 pawns, the pawn on b4 but also the pawn on c3 after a tactical sequence. So this is really tricky line. Also the rook is then a little bit locked here. You can maybe include it through rook to a1, rook to e2 or something, but it's, I think, a playable line really here also for black. So you see b5 leads, I think, into more tactical complications. So as I said, in the later stage of our Catalan opening study, we'll cover also this particular line. So knight to c6, that will be now also this particular sideline that we're analyzing today. So now e3 played by Liren. This idea is clear. e3 is a preparation of white to play knight to d2 and of course liberate then the long diagonal for the light square bishop and trying to recapture the pawn on c4, which is a much better line than maybe to play immediately bishop to g5. There is now a game between Magnus Carlsen against Alireza Firouzja back from 2022, in which Magnus played now this line, bishop to g5, because he was worried if he plays e3 immediately, of course, then the bishop is paralyzed. In this line e3, the bishop is paralyzed by its own pawn, so the bishop doesn't have a good activity. But after move bishop to g5, the game becomes actually quite simplified. So we will not dive into really deep in this particular line because it's, I think, a simplified line. Bishop to e7 will happen, e3, now knight to d5 forces the trades of bishop. Now this long diagonal is locked. Now you can maybe try to attack the pawn, but look at this. Now finally with the move b5, black will eventually get the position that he wanted to get in the first place. Now again, probably b3 is going to happen, but now after c takes b3, a takes b3, white is simply continuing the game with up a pawn, although white has here a good compensation for the lost pawn. White has now the opportunity to play knight to d3 and then to fix the knight on c5. We have here provoked many structural weaknesses in black's camp. This is now weakness on c5. Also the pawn is the square on c6 is weak, but also the pawn on c7 is weak. It's a backward pawn. So I think it's a playable line for both sides. But when I see now the database, many games are simply ending with a draw. So for instance, there's a game Yannick Pelletier against Laurent Fressinet, also draw. Carlsen Firouzja draw. Jason Bokarets against Matthias Kriben, also draw. Parham Maksudlu, Alireza Firouzja draw. So in my opinion, it's a simplified line that leads not into good tactical opportunities for both sides. So here in this game, e3 was played by Liren, trying to get, as we said, knight from f to d2, connects of course the pawn to d4, so now he can play free with his knight on f3, and he wants of course to get the pawn back on c4. So we have a rook to b8 by Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. He's trying to get out of this long diagonal of the light square bishop, but now the fun starts. Knight to d2 played by Ding. We have now the move e5, because when you played knight to d2, the knight is not connected anymore to the e5 square. This moment Shak is using in order to create some tactical damage in the center of the board. But now comes this idea that we have talked about at the beginning. It's risky. It is tricky, of course, but I think it's a good move. Bishop to c6, b takes c6 leads now into this triple messed up pawn structure here on the queen side, but of course provokes some weaknesses on light squares in front of the king. So it's a double-edged line. Many games are won also from black's perspective. Many games are won also from white's perspective. In my opinion, it's really an impressive and important line that you have to know in this a6 sideline. So b takes c6, d takes e5. Now the knight is hanging, knight to g4. Shak is trying to get the pawn back with this line. Knight to c4. We have bishop to e6 attacking now the knight, but now Ding connects everything here, keeps the position compact, plays now on this defensive idea. So h5, this is the way to go. Here what Shakhriyar Mamedyarov is trying to do is getting use of the light square problems that Liren provoked, that he played in the beginning. He gave up his powerful bishop on g2 for the knight on c6. Not that the bishop on g2 is only a good attacking piece, it's also a very important defensive piece in front of white's king. Now you don't have anymore the light square bishop, you have many light square weaknesses, and now Shak is trying to get somehow maybe the h file open, maybe in some lines playing queen to d5, maybe delivering checkmate here on the h file. So it's a tricky, really wild idea. So that's why f3 has to be played, securing the light course. f3 kicks away the knight, rook to b4, counter attack by Shak. Here Ding took the knight on g4. We have bishop to c4, knight to c4, queen to d1, rook takes d1, rook takes c4, and now good move by Ding Liren, bishop to d2. It's much more correct to play this bishop out instead of playing maybe g takes h5, because after rook to h5 you don't have any more opportunities to protect your pawn on e5. You could maybe try rook to d4, but now after rook to c5 this pawn will be taken, and in my opinion it's a good line also here for black. Probably the game will end in a draw. So bishop to d2, good move here by Ding. He's trying to get the bishop connected to the pawn on e5. So we have rook to g4, bishop to a5, attacks now the weak pawn on c7. Here we have bishop to c5, attacking the pawn, king to f2, bishop to b6, but now bishop to c3 connects everything in. Here, at least in this line, Ding Liren has a space advantage with his pawn on e5. So we have now the move rook to g6 by Shak. h4 seems aggressive, but actually doesn't lead to anything here for black. White will simply attack the rook and will simply play g4, will pass through, and then probably connect maybe the pawn with the move h3, and we'll have, I think, a solid game. The problem, I think, for black here in this line is that although black has here a 3 versus 2 pawn majority on the queen side, this is not this absolute really majority, because the pawns are doubled, so it's really hard for black to create a passer here, although you're up a pawn on this side of the board, but it's really tough, especially the bishop is creating also this nice blockade here, so there's nothing that can be done, I think, here on the queen side. So in the game, after move bishop to c3, so that's why Shak didn't play the move rook to h4, as we said, rook to g6, king to f3, and now the fun starts for Ding. Now look at this, how Ding is activating his king. He's getting the king simply towards the center, and that's, I think, now the huge advantage that Ding has in the position. He has the more active king, and the king in an endgame is something that we're supposed to really have as a good attacking piece, not something that we have to defend. So rook to e6, now rook comes into the game, rook to d1, f6, and now rook to d8 by Ding Liren, trying to simplify the game, which is a perfect idea. You can also play e takes f6, but probably Ding was annoyed by this particular line, because it's again very tough maybe to create a pass or something. Here he tried rook to d8, trying to force this line after something like f takes e5, then he get the king closer, and he can get maybe this pawn, and he would have a passer on the e file. So probably he hoped for this particular line. So that's why Shak tried h4, but Ding simply plays g takes h4, accepts the challenge. We have now again this idea, f takes e5, but now the king gets on an optimal square here, attacks now also the pawn on e5. So rook to h6, look at this, Ding can even protect now the pawn on h4. We have rook to g6, rook takes f8, king takes f8, the bishop to g3, connects everything now, and I think black is in huge positional problems here. This pawn will be taken. This rook is very active. You don't have your access here with the rook here on this side of the board, so it's I think a messed up game here for black. Rook to g4, king on f5, the king gets even closer. We have here rook to c4, e4, bishop to d4, bishop to e5, bishop takes e5, king to e5, and now Shak tried somehow to grab many of these pawns on the second rank, but Ding plays an amazing idea. King to e6, threatens even a checkmate in one. That's why here Shak had to step back. e5, okay, Shak took now the pawn on b2, but his pawns are far away from the promotion. Here this pawn is much closer, and as we said, white has simply the active king. We have now the move c5, e6, getting the pawn simply further. In the game, rook to b7 was played by Shak and Mamedyarov, but now Ding played king to e6, and in this position Mamedyarov resigns. So there is now the checkmate threat, there is also the threat of the promotion, so nothing can be done. Even if you cover, of course, this rank, then rook to d8 is still going to happen. You have to trade it off, and this d8 square is protected by the pawn on e7. So great game by Ding. going into the fully endgame stage, realizing his opportunities with his active king, outplayed here strategically Shakh and Mamedyarov. But as I said, Shakh played, I think, a decent opening in the beginning, but this will be now our continuation of our Catalan opening studies, because still this line with the move a6 has so much pleasure for us. There are so many great games, so I think it will be a fun series for us for sure. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting endgame ideas here by Ding Liren. If you want to see more beautiful chess games in the Catalan opening and also some other studies that we have created here, please check out our playlist. Here's again the link. I think, as I said, that you can have really a great preparation in this sharp double-edged opening. So okay, what to say, see you soon with some more videos, and as usual, chess is the best, of course.